Dark Souls 1 feels like the Dark Souls of Dark Souls games, if that makes sense. It's hard in nigh every aspect. Sometimes the word fair doesn't even feel applicable, but it works somehow. There isn't a single aspect I can say was flat out done bad with little redeeming qualities. For everything I disliked about it, there was another part I did like. It just has this undeniable charm. Like, not all the pieces are perfectly in place, but it's close enough that they still fit. As I said at the end of my DS3 video, 2 shifted into the adventure aspect and 3 focused on combat. But 1 is this weird middle ground between both games. It does neither of what those games did as well as they did, but it's in this sweet in-between of combat and RPG mechanics. And I assume that's why people love this game so much and still cling on to it even after having 2 other games to play with. It does what it did so interestingly that it holds up pretty well on its own, even now. I'd still recommend people go back and give it a try, and I wouldn't be surprised if those people felt the same way as me, or just fell in love with it. Which is really interesting to say about a more than decade-old game with multiple derivatives, as I feel not many originals have the same sort of lasting power. The love and critical acclaim Dark Souls 1 gets feels well-deserved.
The things you just heard are some takes from people who really enjoy this game, and some little things I suppose I can understand, but unfortunately Dark Souls 1 is an objectively flawed and buggy mess, held together by duct tape, and I'm going to give a full breakdown of this game and why it doesn't work on a fundamental level. This isn't about how people feel about the game, this is about the truth of the situation and how this product was delivered. Starting with the enemies, if something as simple as the general enemies that litter this world can hardly function on their own. They actually have so many issues I have to go problem by problem, as they're just such a flawed and buggy mess here. But I suppose we can start with their general AI. It really feels like they were coded by a preschooler. Even when they quote-unquote work, they can barely do anything, always opting to run up to you in a straight line and just swing without any forethought. Meaning that you can usually just wait for them to get close and swing. Depending on your weapon, this simple approach will be enough to end most encounters immediately, and makes you really wonder why they never thought to make them more than lemmings charging into a fight they know they can't win. Look at this footage of me in Blighttown simply waiting for the fishmen to walk into my loving arms of death as they all go single file down a ladder they know I'm standing at the bottom of. It's as if the pathfinding here was made by chaotic toddlers. This simple approach of just slapping code against the wall like loose spaghetti strands led to a cavalcade of other little funky issues. Like how a lot of times the enemy's AI will simply break and they have no idea what to do. I have many examples of the enemy simply brain farting and not knowing how to reach me, let alone attack me. It's as if they're struggling to think about if they want to go back home and have a nice piping hot breakfast burrito or engage with me. Meanwhile, I'm just standing there awkwardly waiting to see what this socially anxious idiot is trying to do so I can go past. It's baffling that a bunch of grown men looked at this product and thought this was good and deserved their seal of approval. This completely botched AI leads to another system seeming like the strongest thing in history: backstabbing. Whenever you get behind someone in the Souls series, you can land a backstab for huge damage, but due to how stupid the artificial intelligence is here, most times they'll just give you their back for free. And since the lazy devs couldn't think of any failsafes, you can just chain backstab most of the enemies due to the fact they have no immunity for a few seconds and can't turn around after the first backstab lands and they're getting up. Surely I should be finished right. Surely the simple pathfinding and mere code of the enemies would be enough. Sit back down because we have more to talk about on this front. The code doesn't work, but what about the placement, right? Surely that's fine. No, absolutely not. At times it feels like I'm playing horde mode for how many random enemies will just appear and try to get a piece of me. Duke's Archives is a prime example. You can see me casually trying to go through the area and it almost looks like Dynasty Warriors footage with how I'm just getting absolutely swarmed left and right, as if the developers were just copy and pasting enemies. And don't think the other areas are any better. It's clear that this A-team, as it were, don't really know how to do anything. Demon Ruins is one of the worst areas for the amount of enemy spam that's just all over the place, let alone those enemies are just reused variants of the first and second boss. Who gave this the okay, and why were they so unwell that they actually decided to go through with this? Stop spamming me. It's like no matter where you go, there will be some contrived nonsense just waiting around the corner to get you, because the devs didn't know how to make real difficulty. And sometimes it's not even the spam that'll get you. Some of the enemy placements make absolutely no sense. And Orlando is by far and away the biggest example of this issue. Why would these painted guardians be on the top of the building just waiting for someone random to walk through the window you step in through? This becomes extremely apparent when you think they were smart enough to get up here, but literally had no plan if they fell, like a safety net or something similar. Off of them we have the archers outside who are just gripping the loose scaffolding with their toenails, hoping they don't fall off the tiny balcony they stand on while firing great bows. Or maybe we can talk about the Titanite demon they have casually closed behind a normal sized door and, oh, I don't know, not somewhere more sensible like the basement or something. Across the board, the enemy placements here are just an issue. But now you think, surely I'm done now, right? Do you know what game we're talking about? Of course I'm not done. The damage output on some of these enemies is downright ludicrous. I'm wearing the Havel set alongside an upgraded Boar's Head. Meanwhile, these little crystal guys can immediately hit me for near half health anyway. I might as well be naked and flop around like a fish if they're going to be hitting me for this much while wearing one of the strongest sets in the game. They for some reason managed to hit me harder than most of the bosses in this game, and that's how I feel you should really know they were just scaling numbers up and down without any real consideration. So what you're left with here is a bunch of idiots walking around like toddlers with bazookas, able to simply atomize you on the rare occasion they can land a hit. That's if they don't end up rolling and letting you backstab them for free. However, I suppose we should talk about the next thing. The bosses. The thing that everyone loves this game for. They are fundamentally awful and some of the worst I've ever fought. In gaming, not just in this series. On average, they range from super easy to mediocrity within 2 seconds. It's astounding how many of them you can just walk around and smack while they can barely turn to get you. A clear example of the pastrami code striking again. If everything worked as intended, this would be the entirety of this section. Unfortunately, in this buggy mess, there's always a hook in these kinds of things. The hitboxes here are some of the worst I've ever seen. It feels like every other encounter I'm being hit with some foolishness that flat out shouldn't have hit me because A, I'm physically nowhere near it, or B, the hitbox jets out before the actual attack. It's things like this that make me wonder what the testing phase was like, and if there were more bugs like, oh, I don't know, bosses grappling you with their collision. Oh wait, that can happen here too. Here's an example of the chaos which Quailag hitbox shoving me into her fire puddles that shouldn't even reach me and getting a free kill from it. It's embarrassing to watch, but even worse to play. But notice I said most range from mediocre to easy. The outliers are by far and away some of the worst fights in the series, so I find it funny when some try to call out other entries in the series for having bad bosses when this one has Bed of Chaos. I feel you're setting yourself up for failure and throwing rocks from a glass house. This boss scenario was so bad, it's the only time we've heard the developers apologize for how something was made. Who else do I even need to bring up? The joke of a quote-unquote boss, that ceaseless discharge, or the Taurus demon whose weakness is going up a ladder 3 times. But what happens if you die against these sloppily produced bosses? Well, you have to go through a sloppily produced runback. Time wasters where you run for a minute, or in some cases minutes, just to get back to the boss you were on. So not only do you have to deal with some glitch, buggy, or just awful bosses, but if you die to them, you'll have to do some super silly runbacks just to waste time. Like Quailag's stupid poisonous swamp or Bed of Chaos is everything, in all honesty. So the bosses and enemies, which make up 70% of the game, are bad. What's left? The areas here feel like they were intentionally designed to waste your time. For the first half in an ideal playthrough where you know exactly where to go, this isn't time consuming. However, in the 99.9% scenario that on the first playthrough you don't perfectly know the map, you'll be walking around for hours trying to figure out where the hell you're even trying to go. It leads to so much downtime of you just sauntering around like a ghoul, stomping through areas you've already been through. It's as if the devs assumed everyone was them and would have perfect pinpoint accuracy of where to go at all times. Then you reach the second half after getting the Lord Vessel, and it feels like they partially just gave up on wandering around like a rodent for cheese, as they give you the option to fast travel. Their own idea of traversing this world with your own wits while unlocking shortcuts, they couldn't even fully believe in, because it's clear they had no idea what they were doing. Ignoring that part of it, some of these areas are just designed like an in-joke or something. Blighttown is just a slug through slop, where it goes from annoying enemy spam to traversing a poisonous swamp with no way to avoid the poison other than constantly using anti-poison items, which it's very possible you won't have a ton of. Duke's Archives, aside from the ganky enemy design we talked about earlier, the end half of it, which is the part you have to do for your boss runback by the way, has slippery collision on these crystals, then invisible flooring you have to hope you follow right because otherwise it's an instant death. The Great Hollow and the DLC feel like jokes because there's no way sane people would know how to reach them. And I could go on, but let's just stop there, on this point. This world coherently makes no sense from any fantasy perspective. Where are all the normal citizens in this huge, sprawling world? We run across an entire kingdom over the course of our adventure, and we only discover a handful of people that aren't crazy hollows. In what world am I supposed to believe there's only 7 or so sane guys left, and everyone else is crazy and or a monster? This is ridiculous. Then they decided to try and be edgy and make half of these NPCs die at the end of their quests. Do you not know how to make a good story without killing the characters? To go back to the areas again, because of course I'm not done with them, the general way that they're set up and positioned makes no sense. Why would Firelink have an elevator go up to the place where the gargoyles are at? How is Firelink even considered safe when if you walk to the cemetery that's literally right next to it, there are literal sentient skeletons that attack anyone on sight, and nobody seems to be worried about them? The world feels gamey, if that makes sense. The way that these locations loop in and out of each other makes no practical sense if you were to live in this world. Then some don't make any sense at all in general, honestly. Like how if you go down from Blighttown into the Great Hollow, you then reach Ash Lake, to which there you can see the sky? You mean the sky that should be nasty, goopy swamp water? Aside from navigating these god-awful areas, we have to talk about the level layout. It goes from extremely annoying tight spaces to fight in to semi-wide areas where they just spam enemies. It just feels like sometimes they had no idea what they wanted to do, or imagine these areas without any enemies at all initially. So many times you'll be trying to swing at someone, especially if you have a heavy weapon, and you'll just ping off the wall. It's infuriating, honestly. Let's talk about fog walls and using area-related items like chests and levers. My favorite part about these is for some random reason, you receive invincibility when doing these actions. What does this mean? It means that you can disregard most of the game and just straight beeline for these any chance possible. And unlike DS3, this game will randomly sprinkle tons of them, so sometimes you could put yourself in a downright awful scenario where you should die, and just abuse iframes to get out of them. I feel I don't need to tell you this, but when devs make a mechanic that exists to help people ignore other mechanics entirely, it's an objectively badly designed system. The only way you could argue against that is if you don't really like playing huge chunks of the game in the first place, which is a separate problem, and one that most likely falls on you. But on to the healing, because I always found that a fun topic of discussion. In DS3 you can only really heal with Estus, and once if you had died previously, Embers. There were some other very limited healing items, but since that was an objectively good game, they were heavily limited so you couldn't really fall back on them. DS1 fools you into thinking it might be the same, with Estus being the main healing item, but then you discover Humanities, an easily farmable resource that, while has a slower using speed, will fully recover your entire health bar when used. You can hold 99 Humanities by themselves, ignoring the twin Humanities entirely, meaning that once you figure this out, as long as you can survive, you can fully recover whenever you want to with pretty much no consequence. It's objectively cartoonish to make a resource you can hold 99 of at a time heal you to full the moment you use it. DS3 had the genius idea of making it a one and done kind of thing, but this buggy, broken mess didn't even have the foresight to think of that. Quite literally, no other game in their catalog has an item that guaranteed heals you to full on use the moment the animation's done that you can hold 99 of. But now for the lovely, lovely controls. They feel not good. When you're walking around the general areas, it's fine, but the moment you hit the lock-on button, you've doomed yourself to a significantly worse gameplay experience. You see, the moment you hit that button, your character will enter this clunky feeling strafe mode, where your main options are either going side to side or forwards. It is disgusting. and an issue. Again, no other game in the trilogy has. I tossed and turned for one possible reason that you would want it to be like this, but I can't find one. It is objectively inferior to DS2 and 3, but not just for that reason. Once you lock on, you can only roll in 4 directions. Why anyone in the team thought this was a good idea completely escapes me. It makes it so you might as well not use the thing, as the free locked off movement is significantly, I repeat, significantly better. Another fun thing about the controls is weapons like axes having follow through. If you fail to hit a target, your character will get awkwardly stunned for a moment. It is ludicrous to make a game where every movement's supposed to count, and the chosen undead here can cost you multiple moments because something might have moved and made him awkwardly stagger. However, I'm not done yet. Ladders. This game has some absurdly long ladders, and normally that wouldn't really be an issue. However, this game doesn't have anywhere for you to quickly go up them, so you'll be sitting there slowly squirming up these sometimes minute-long climbs, and it's such a baffling choice I don't know how they reached it. But don't worry, you can go down ladders fast. The fun part is this isn't told to you anywhere in the game. If you're still on a ladder and hold circle or your circle equivalent, you'll slide down it, which means the A-team here knew that you wouldn't want to waste time on these, but then couldn't think of a way to make you go up ladders faster. Quality of life in general, disregarding that, is an abysmal mess here. If you'd like to respec, you can't. You heard it right. The A-team made an RPG without the ability to respec, meaning it's extremely likely your first playthrough will lead to you being this jacked up combination of stats, as you wouldn't have known what any of these things really mean yet. In an objectively better game like Dark Souls 3, boss souls can be traded at Firelink with an NPC right after you beat the cursed rotted Greatwood. It's a simple but efficient system. In this game, it's very possible you won't even know what boss souls do or how to use them because of how stupidly confangled it is to make use of them. You'll more than likely use them to increase your general soul count, with no idea you've just forced yourself to miss a weapon you can't get back on this playthrough. Tail cutting is never, and I mean never, explained to the player. Even when they design a cool system in theory, they get fearful people might discover it. So the only way you'll stumble into this fact is if you chop one off by accident. It's like they think they're going to get in trouble for designing something in their own game. Overall, this game is an objectively buggy, flawed, broken mess. This isn't about your feelings or if you want to like it to be different. It's simply the truth of the matter that this game does not really work. Let's stop letting our biases or nostalgia get in the way of that, and admit that this game has very little good working content to begin with. It's impossible to make any defense of this game without randomly trying to drag the others down, because I feel even people who like this thing, this creature of a product, no, they can't say anything without belittling the other game's works, and it leads to them making themselves sound silly in the process. But this has been a long video, and I'm sick of talking about this disappointing slop. As always, if you agree with me, leave a comment. If you don't, I'd rather not hear from you. I'm not going to respond to you or any counterpoints to this video.
Well. I always wanted to talk about the worst thing ever, but today we're talking about something worse than that. Dark Souls 2. And wait, it gets even worse. The Scholar Edition. This is by far the worst Souls game and the worst Souls-like I've ever played for pretty much every possible reason. To me, it's not even a question, it's just obvious. And today, I wanted to get my thoughts out on that. Some may say it's beating a dead horse, because we all know this is just the slime of the slop kind of video game, but we gotta make sure this evil stays buried, just so everyone knows this is my first and hopefully only playthrough. So everything I'm going to be talking about and showing is going to be from the base game and not New Game Plus, because let's be honest, would you want to play more of this than you had to? Let me answer that for you. No, but let me catch my breath and try to be nice in the beginning. And let's start with the positives.
Is there another one?
There aren't any.
Is there another one?
This is by far the worst mechanic in the game. It's so awful, I don't know how anybody defends it. If you somehow don't know, which I don't blame you, because why would you waste time playing this garbage game, quote unquote, if you even want to call it that. ADP is a stat that affects rolling and item use. This is downright ridiculous and lazy. Letting the player mess around with how effective their rolling is an absurd concept that breaks the game at all levels. This has never been a thing in any of the other games, and the fact that it's here is ridiculous. I mean, have the devs ever even played a Dark Souls game? Some may say, what about light and heavy rolling? The rings in both other games, which you can argue makes Dark Souls 1 the worst offender because the flip had nuts iframes. But this is absurd! You're telling me that I can get ADP to level 25 and I can stop worrying about it, but why is it there in the first place? Yeah, sure, you could manage that in the first 2 areas, maybe even earlier depending on your starting class, but this stat is a prominent issue that haunts the entire game. It haunted me mainly because I refused to level it, but I shouldn't have to do that. If a game mechanic changes, I shouldn't have to change with it. And for a moment, imagine this. Imagine if they had some stat that affected the speed of something that wasn't immediately obvious to you, and it was named Dex. That would be ludicrous. Almost as ludicrous as these B-team C-list developers thinking they can touch my favorite IP.
Is there an ability?
Holy guacamole! The game speed here is absolutely crazy. It's so slow. I'll become a corpse by the time my character even takes a step. Some are of the opinion that the combat being slower makes it more deliberate, and I guess you'd say that if you're a moron and your opinion is wrong. Almost as wrong as the B-team who dared touch what should have been a godlike sequel. Dark Souls 1 had literal perfect combat, so why would you dare bother touching the game speed? The real sequel we should have gotten, which is Dark Souls 3, nailed this. Now some may say, how could you like 3 if it changed the game speed like 2 did, just in the opposite way? And to that I'd say, I like it more than 2's. And I can already hear the plebeian saying, but you just said liking 2's game speed is a different opinion. How come you can like 3's gameplay being faster, but we can't like 2's being slower? And like I said before, your opinions are irrelevant and I don't care about them. We aren't here to talk about your feelings, we're here to discuss facts. And you're factually of the wrong opinion on this one, and I'm factually on the right opinion on this one.
Is there an ability?
Connected to my game speed point here, the controls themselves are absolutely horrendous. B-team choices were made left and right. First, we have to talk about where they probably assumed they innovated. Let's look at something like the Humble Ladder. In an actual game with soul and passion oozing out of every corner named Dark Souls 1, you could go down ladders fast, but you could only go up them slow. In Dark Souls 2, you can go up and down ladders faster if you hold circle. And I'm sure some of you slop slurry Dark Souls 2 enjoyers are probably thinking that's a plus, right? Of course I couldn't expect some idiots like you to grasp the magnificence of this. Dark Souls 1's slower ladder speed helps you really take in the world. Think about your choices and serve as a bit of a nice relaxing break from the immaculate gameplay. Dark Souls 2 didn't see the value in this, of course, so now you can speed past these bits. Unfortunately, this sloppy design choice is carried into the future games. Unsure why, as nothing in this game could be considered an improvement. Speaking of which, let's talk about this awful 8-dimensional movement idea that they did here. In this game, you can only move in 8 directions, up, down, left, right, and then the horizontals. This is bad. This cuts out so much movement potential. I'm sure that every soul who's ever touched an analog stick has noticed this playing this game. It's such a core point flaw that my hands almost vomit when seeing the character twitch. Then we have to talk about the awful lock-on situation. First of all, the game didn't verbatim tell me not to lock on to every enemy in this game. This was a huge issue for me that I couldn't grasp until a video guide told me not to do it. I'm being so serious. I had to use an online guide to tell me how to not lock on to every single threat because the game didn't convey that well enough. And it's wild to me because the B team almost found a way to naturally teach me that and had the means to do so. You see, if they literally just deleted the control for the lock-on button so I physically couldn't have done it, then I would have actually been able to figure this out after a few days. But of course, the B team has to run in fear of doing anything innovative for the better. But we still aren't done here with the lock-on somehow. If you played an actual good game like Dark Souls 1, you know when you locked on in that game, you get this nice, crispy, buttery smooth strafe. But in Dark Souls 2, you get this freedom of movement. Ugh! When you lock on, you get to still move around with your full movement abilities, just you'll always end up facing the enemy you're locked onto. This was a objectively horrible design choice. Who would want freer movement when locked on instead of an immaculate strafe? Especially in a melee game. At its worst, it can even get you killed! If you decide to run away from an enemy while you're locked onto them, your character fully has to turn around and it can get you hit. If I'm trying to run away while in the locked on mode to fight a target, why on earth would you be punishing me for trying to run away? These idiotic devs clearly just aren't thinking again. Brain dead dolts game design choices like this are why this game sucks.
And another small addition that I almost really let slide. Would have been disgusting had I. If you accidentally hit the lock on button, sometimes the enemies will hit you and this can get you killed. You're telling me in a Souls game if I accidentally hit the wrong button, I can die for it? Are we serious?
Some may say something stupid like, well, why are you running away while locked on? Wouldn't or shouldn't you just lock off? Anyways, we have to then talk about the rolling while locked on because it's a massive downgrade. In Dark Souls 1, if you locked on and you went to roll, you could only roll in one of 4 directions. Simple, but nice and neat, right? But in this game, you can roll in 8 directions. That's right, 8 directions. With freedom like that, why don't you just let me code the game, huh? And I can imagine some may be asking how that's a negative, and that's because...
Is there another one?
Hey guys, quick little cut in moment. I appreciate you for watching it this far. This is where I appreciate my patrons. Shout out Chazbox, I love that guy. Also, a quick little statement. There's currently no other videos like this in the works. That might sound like a bad thing. That means I'm free to make whatever the next one would be, however I want. I kinda wanna make a video, like, reviewing all these games with the Charitability of Dark Souls 1, which would be the opposite of these. I think that would be a super fun idea. Maybe we go and we talk about Elden Ring, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. Given my workload and that I'm not solely a Dark Souls channel, that might be a little bit off. However, I'm willing to say something that I may or may not regret. If I get 20 patrons, I will put up a poll and I will let you decide out of the ideas that I've already had, which one should be the next focus. Just be aware, if you join the Patreon, I am not solely a Dark Souls channel. I talk about other things. Do not be shocked when you see other things on there, but I am willing to make that deal. Oh, just these videos are a lot of work. That's the only reason I'm putting it on that. But yeah, anyways, let me hand it back to past me. And again, thanks to Chazbox, man.
I can sit back, kick up my feet, and relax, knowing that no idiot would dare defend this game for this. Scholar has the worst enemies and enemy placement in anything I've ever played. Let me ask you, Scholar fans, this. What's the point where you stop simply keeling over and letting FromSoft's B team have their way with you? Simply put, these are the worst enemies ever designed. Look at the screen right now. An event I played no part in led to this Dynasty Warrior-esque cavalcade of goons following. Some may say they die in 2 hits. Or something else equally stupid like, maybe take your time with the area. Do you think I bought this game to take my time with the areas? No! It's so boring having to walk through these areas fighting enemies. It takes like an hour or 2 to get through one segment. I much rather the Dark Souls 3 approach of letting me easily run past every enemy. Some may say, somewhat like I mentioned before, the enemies die normally in 2 hits or so, and don't often do a ton of damage. And to that I'd say, you must be stupid. No factors around how or why enemies are balanced for that will make me accept this as okay. It's not some change or a tweak, it's objectively bad game design because I don't like it. And even if you think otherwise and think that you could potentially defend this point, I still have my fallback nuclear bomb. Defend Iron Keep for me, bud. Ooh, right? Ooh. I bet you Dark Souls 2 fans are all hot and bothered now. Some may say, you're cherry-picking a bad area. Or would say something like, would you point to one bad area in the other games and blanket statement the entire thing? Or some nonsensical drivel like that, but the whole game is like that. And I know you can't prove otherwise.
Is there another one?
Lifegems, aka the worst design choice to ever happen to man. Estus was a literal flawless system in Dark Souls 1. It tested one's ability to get through areas strategically while managing a limited resource. Lifegems snapped this perfect balance into pieces. millions of them. The B team can't comprehend the thought of a good idea. Neither can any of the plebeians defending this system. A system where you can easily obtain a bunch of healing items like this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It destroys the beautiful ecosystem of resource that the pinnacle Dark Souls 1 had innovated. I mean, a bunch of slow healing resources? Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Some may try to counterpoint me by saying, well, having more healing resources makes sense because there's more enemies to engage with. Or something else even weaker like, but Estus is still far better for combat due to its faster healing nature. But none of that matters. Healing should be limited in order for it to stay true to the Dark Souls experience. And I can already hear some of it now. But Demon Souls had grass, which you could get a ton of and even buy like Lifegems. Or something even stupider like, but DS1 had humanities, which fully healed you, meaning as long as you had any, you could recover just fine. And to that I'd say,
Is there another one?
we've already talked about the locations briefly because of the insane amount of enemy spam, which, may I remind you, if you like them, means you probably also like fingers in your ear. But the locations themselves are awful and disgusting. Pukey color palettes or dinky dark areas are all I see here. If you look at the screen, I promise every single area looks like this. Dirty, bleak, and disgusting. This is objectively the worst design game ever in this aspect. Maybe every aspect, who knows? But if I had to choose one area out of the 30 or so that ruined this game, I'd have to say the enemies suck and it's just lava everywhere. What a boring idea. But you know what's even worse? Take a guess of what area has the longest elevator in the game. And guess what area has a giant Minotaur statue in it? You see how 99.9% of flaws point to... But to get back onto... Guess what area has the old Iron King boss? Ooh, it boils my blood. Iron Keep, Iron Keep, Iron Keep.
Is there another one?
Really almost slipped by me. But one of the worst features is the god-awful iframes in this game. We are going to talk about the rolling because we already did that in the ADP section. But when you go to open a chest or step through fog walls, you're not invincible in this game? It's such a brain-dead change that I don't understand why they made it, and why the DS2 fans, or as we should call them, brain-dead gerbils, defend this point. This design choice is absolutely the worst. It pushes people in the RPG to clear out areas or else they, get this, suffer the consequences of their actions? No thanks. I like my low-risk, high-reward exploration. I'm sure whoever coded this thought they were a genius, but in reality, they probably couldn't even pass a kindergarten math quiz.
Is there another one?
I've been waiting, itching, rubbing my hands together like the fly on your wall right now to get to this point. Bosses here are dreadful, terrible. They don't have that bad boy edge the original Dark Souls had. They all have very few moves, overly honest telegraphs, and are just bad. And at their best, they're fine. Unlike amazing bosses like Quailag, Taurus, Centipede, and the others who had truly rich, deep, enthralling, majestic movesets that almost felt like you were fighting a real creature that burst into your home. It's like going from fine dining to eating out of the pigsty. I mean, seriously, going from the home of incredible boss fights to the bottom of the bin is... it's disgusting. But I suppose you Dark Souls 2 fans just eat it up, huh? Guess you like eating out of the bottom of the trash can, huh? Dumpster dives are probably the highlight of your day. It's almost impressive how the C-list B team managed to craft some of the most generic, uninspired, least interesting fights known to man with nothing unique about them at all. Had Michael P. Zaki lended his grace to this game, we probably wouldn't be here. But unfortunately, we happen to be here.
Is there another one?
This is infamous. I mean, there's so many I can show you, it'd be kind of pointless to even elaborate on this point for super long. We all know that this game in particular has some notoriously bad hitboxes.
FromSoft has always been so good with their hitboxes across all of their titles, it baffles me that they could allow something like this to even exist. And what baffles me even more is the scum-guzzling Dark Souls 2 enjoyers who play this sludge and don't see a single problem with it. I have to reiterate, I don't care if you like the game or accept it for what it is. This is an objectively flawed and awful game. This is the piece of art where subjectivity isn't a part of the conversation because it's so unfathomably bad, and that little nuance bit that you guys like to throw around every once in a while when you start losing every debate you step into. Just open your eyes and defend this. I mean, seriously, look at the screen and defend what I'm showing you. I dare you! Is this where you should say level ADP? Or will you finally see the truth that you've been delusional ever since you wanted to be the special gumdrop that likes this game just because it's different?
Is there another one?
The rock most people want to die on. The power stancing was a good addition claim. Wrong! They act like this added a ton of depth. Being able to wield two weapons of the same class and even similar classes at the same time. Quantity over quality strikes again. But I doubt those idiots can even see why. Being able to do this is really just move blow. All these options are there if someone wants to explore them, but guess what I'm thinking? If you guessed I don't care about exploring any of those, ding 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 ding, you're correct. All of these useless dual-wield options don't mean anything to me if I personally don't want to use it. If I wanted to play a game with real power stancing, I'd play a good game like Elden Ring. Some may say Elden's gives you less options, but you DS2 Frank slobberers can't accept when doing something simple is doing something better, can you? This will bleed into my next point.
Is there another one?
Golly gumdrops build variety. You'd think letting people make builds in an RPG was a big deal the way DS2 fans won't ever stop talking about it. Quantity over quality strikes again. Hexes, pyromancies, miracles, and sorceries? What do they all have in common? All found in the bottom of my damn trash bin. I am a strength user, so I only ever use strength weapons. Now, I'm not saying you need to play this game like me or hate it as much as I do, but all of these other options are useless to me as a strength user. People glaze the amount of boss soul weapons and abilities, but as a solely strength user, half of these rewards are useless to me. Heck, even more than half. So I have to sit there, hands folded like a good little guy, as the game hands me crap in a bowl 99.9% of the game. If they removed Dex, Faith, and all these other crappy little perks, the game would be better because I don't use any of that stuff anyway. And before the inevitable and unfortunately comment Soy Boy DS2 fan says, well, even if it's not for you, what if you ever try another build? And again, I have to swat you down like the damaged little fly you are. With the mighty axe of a saying, quantity over quality. Feel free to weep and baby rage in the comments now. I'm never going to change my build. I'm never going to play this game in any different way. And some may say, well, what about the others? What about other players? Are they the ones reviewing this game? No. Is this their video? No. So in my humble fact, all this garbage on top of the Dookie Sunday is worthless, cookie cutter filler. I'm happy for you guys that like to fly around dung, but me, I respect myself more than you clearly do yourself, so I won't engage with it.
Is there another one?
Another addition that these slob dogs love to hang on to. You could respec in Dark Souls 2, which you couldn't in Dark Souls 1. Okay, you want a medal? Maybe a dog treat? Whoever said respecing in a game with builds is a good thing? Me personally? I love when an RPG with multiple builds and options for the player to use forces me down a specific path because I didn't know every option when I opened the game. It gives your builds more purpose, and if I hypothetically in another timeline wanted to try another build, I'd have the joy of prancing around Dark Souls 1 all over again with a brand new character. But Dark Souls 2 missed the joyous and whimsy feeling of starting an entire game over to try something new by trying to innovate again. Some real bread tastes better than key logic on this one.
Is there another one?
Quantity over quality is the name of the game for these last few sections, huh? Another thing the DS2 slob dogs will praise is that the game actually changes when you go through more new game playthroughs of it. Does anyone see the problem here? I'm sure my fellow truth feeler free thinkers will notice it immediately. I'd have to play this piece of crap more than once? Hell, I should have got a reward for even opening it past the main menu. But now you expect me to actually play top to bottom 7 times? What are we on? Impractical Jokers? Dark Souls 1 and 3 have the perfect new game add-on. When you beat it, get this guys, you actually get to play a good game again. Dark Souls 2 and its little shard-out editions can't compete with that, can they? More always equals better to you Dark Souls 2 guys, right? I got a lot in my pigsty outside. Why don't you dive in that?
Is there another one?
More like PV put me to sleep. Given Dark Souls 2's combat is already gross as we discussed, could you imagine doing that slow, clunky, awful combat against another player? Some may say, but DS2's combat isn't mostly rolling like 3s and 1s, and due to all the build options, it's always something new. Ugh. Do they even hear themselves? Watching your opponent roll out their entire stamina bar and run away is the DS Invader or PvP experience. Without that, we might as well call this some crap spin-off series. And if I wanted to play a crap rip-off version of a FromSoft game, I'd just play Monster Hunter.
Is there another one?
I could have probably just opened with this point, and you would immediately agree that Dark Souls 2 is the worst thing ever and will lead to the end of mankind. In one of the best pieces of fiction ever made, Dark Souls 1, the world was fully coherent. You could explore from one place to the next, and it made logical sense with basic geography. In Crud Souls 2, the world doesn't even make sense. To bring it back to the indefensible... To even get there, you have to take an elevator up to a lava world. Does that make any sense? No! Now, I can accept fantasy dragons being consumed by the deep dark. I can accept the fact that the world ends if one fire goes out. And I can accept a giant serpent swallows you and takes you to some underground cup. But the world not being geographically connected is where I draw the line, okay? Some may say it was a novel idea and unique to Dark Souls 1, but I can't accept that. Everything Dark Souls 1 does, Dark Souls 2 spits in the face of. It's like some kind of kink the designers had to spit on this Michael P. Zaki guy's legacy. I could never, ever play a game with an inconsistent world. And some people lay on this, but the main point of the plot is that the main character is losing their memory. So it being disjointed is the, do you ever shut the fuck up and hear yourself? Just scraping at the bottom of the barrel for anything to defend every single point against this game? When are you going to get off of your knees under the desk for them? God!
Is there another one?
Just some sob stories on top of sob stories in this game. Everyone either exists to show how horrible the undead curse is, or how horrible life is here. This would never happen in any of the other games in the trilogy. It's like the team thought sad makes glad. It's something unique to this game that all the characters have something to moan about. And then they all keep talking about death. Over and over again, death is brought up in this game. It's like the devs thought that dying is what made the other Souls games good. So they just have every character keep yapping on and on about it. Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition and Dark Souls 3, the game about the world ending, never did this. And it shows how the writers here, or as I like to call them, baboons holding lead sticks and scribbling, have no understanding of this world or its themes.
Is there another one?
Not really a ton to say here. Why would I want to play more of this garbage game? There's 3 garbage DLCs, all with the same garbage qualities of the base game. But if I had to point out anything specific, Aleum Lois sucks. You're telling me I have to scour an entire area to find an eyeball in this big, easy to get lost in map? Nah, I'm good. I couldn't even bring myself to fight this stupid tiger I heard of, because even thinking about this region
might have given me brain damage. Another B-team design choice, for them to think I'd want to play this filth and look around for some stupid eyeball. Broom Tower, what do I look like walking up and down some chains to use these wedges? They want me to play the game, explore the areas, and search for rewards? Nah, I'm good. I play Dark Souls for the riveting bosses like Kappa and Iron Golem, or that whole lot that I said earlier, which are known for being immaculate. I'm not here to explore this stupid fantasy world, and don't even get me started on Shova, a sunken city, more like a sunken profit margin for From after letting this idiot direct. No memorable set pieces, no interesting lore, just tombs, boring tombs that I have to, oh god, I want to retch, playthrough. Oh, Michael Pizzocchi would have never made us do something like this.
Is there another one?
You might be wondering where the Dark Souls 2 footage is for this segment, and the truth is, I can't bother wasting any more lifeblood and brain power on this filth. I'm sure you feel the same. To me, like I said before, consider this the Chekhov's gun of the conversation. It's not a question of if this is the worst thing FromSoft has made. To me, it's just obvious. If I had to choose to play every swamp level in the other better Souls games back to back or play this, I'd play those every day of the week. I'd even add days to the week to play more of them. This is one of the worst pieces of art to objectively exist. This video could have been 70 times longer, but to try and make this concise, I decided to try and make it short and sweet. But I'm sure one of my peers could unironically make a more than 10-hour long essay on some idiot that likes this filth, and keep going on how objectively bad it is. But that's been all I've needed to say here. This game sucks, and if you like it, I need you to get over your little soft, malleable feelings and accept that. I don't even want to do an outro for this. This game, it'd be a waste of my talent to script out an outro. Subscribe if you're a truth teller like me, and leave a pathetic, weasel hate comment if you like this garbage. So we all know that you're stupid, and we can laugh at you.
Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 is a video game that was made. It reminds me of a book. The writer putting in word after word after word, only to suddenly begin writing bolds and exclamation points after every other sentence. The bolds begin drowning out the rest of the story, and you notice the writer has lost his way. That is exactly what Dark Souls 3 is. The exclamation points that drown out the rest of the story. In the words of Kratos, God of War, it's a mess. I didn't want to come into this game not liking it, however, I really don't like this game. I gave it chance after chance to impress me, and it just makes me crunchy every single time. The only thing I notice about Dark Souls 3 fans is they have a chronic illness of stupidity, and I'm here to give my honest and unbiased critique of this video game. Let's start with the good, because it's clear that this game is going to need every ounce of goodness I can give it. Blessed Weapon has a very cool effect. The shining blades are very neat, and it makes you feel like you're fighting as this holy warrior of light or something. Now, let's get onto the bad, because holy guacamole, there's a lot. First off, enemy spam. If you thought the last installment was bad, wait until you play this game. In my subjective opinion, this game is objectively horrendous with this. The only people who would disagree with me are these soy boy FromSoft fans who don't know any better. Many times I end up in these scenarios that are literally unavoidable, and there's nothing I could do to avoid it. They're bad. They're so bad. It's like the designers simply wanted every step of this game to be awful through and through. Take these clips for instance. Literally unfair, horrendous enemy design where it's 2 bajillion guys against my 1 guy, and they all box me up and beat me up. What am I supposed to do? Boot up a different game? Then let's talk about some of these enemy encounters. Unfair and unreactable. I'll go back into detail on some specific areas, but let's look at the profane capital area. I have to walk across a bridge while fireball nun ladies are consistently spamming fireballs at me. Then suddenly, a gargoyle pops up and blocks the path, and there's nothing I can do about it. Is this fair game design? Did anyone even actually play this game? Even before in the room with all the jailers, there's literally not a single way past them without fighting. So you die over and over again trying to slip past them due to this bogus health draining effect. fact. It's impossible. Don't question or look it up. I've done everything to get past this area, and every single time I get killed. Is this how the game rewards me for playing it? I'm being punished for interacting with the video game that I bought? This is crazy. Hitboxes are absurd in this game. Just look at the screen and you'll see numerous examples of universally bad hitboxes that everyone has a problem with every time they play the game. It's just slimy, 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 slimy. How am I supposed to play the game when literally every encounter is like this? And no, that's not exaggerated. There's no consistency. Sometimes shit works and sometimes shit won't. Here's multiple examples of the game sharding itself. The one core thing you need for a game to work doesn't here, and it's actually ridiculous. Like many things in this game, it's clear it's death by 1,000 cuts. When even the core systems don't work, you know we're in for a bad time. Speaking of core systems, this game just controls like crap. I hate to say it, but I think you all know it too. It feels like I'm behind the wheel of a wet wriggling worm. It's fast. You don't even really feel grounded, and more like you're slipping away on ice every single encounter. I just wish it controlled like the last game, and some may say I should just get used to this game controlling differently and accept I bought a separate game. Anyways, just so much is wrong. When I did the tutorial, they teach you to attack with the R1 button, but sometimes when I attack with R1, the enemy hits me back. Really? Something the game tells me how to do in the tutorial I can't do every single encounter every single second? I didn't even really get how this system worked until I looked up a guide from a YouTuber, and they told me I might have to roll from time to time. This isn't a joke. I didn't know how the game worked until a YouTuber told me. That's just ridiculous. Also, you can hit tank in this game easily. Now, I'm a god of Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 fans won't admit it, but it's true. Once you level up Estus and get a decent shield, you can just sit there blocking stuff and healing occasionally. Why would I bother engaging with this game if there's a super unfun safe option I could do at all times? This game's combat sucks mainly because there's even an option to play the game like this, and I'm gonna play like this and say the game's dumb because I can do that. Look, here's me blocking Solar Cinder on New Game 2 without a heavy stamina build. I'm not even wearing the funny Havel armor. Are we serious? I guess then I have one last point. Fog walls and door openings. In this video game, you're invincible when opening doors and entering boss rooms, as if they thought I'm some weak little baby invalid that needed to get out of jail free card. Why would you give me an option to ignore enemies and interacting with the game that you've made unless you wanted me to just do that? Name one other game where you'll just go, I'll skip this part, and that's cool? It's stupid. Really, really stupid. Now that all the fluff's out of the way, let's talk about the areas. The game falls apart at Fair Woods. This is one of the worst areas in the entire series. Well, maybe there's worse in Dark Souls 3, but that's not exactly a high bar. You walk around this huge area with nothing but this goopy swamp water in it. All you can do is roll around in this gook while trying to find 3 pillars with no tell at all. Alongside that, there's a bunch of enemies that you can't possibly deal with while wandering in this goop. Then when I interact with the fire, they punish me by making me have to go through more of this area. That's right, the game punishes me for interacting with it. The whole game is like this, and it's just so freaking awful. It's so bad I could unironically make this video 5 hours long if I focus on every example of the game doing this, but I won't because it's just so bad. Then let's talk about the design. It's just boring. Boring dark colors with boring dark color palettes. However, to make you not question me, I'm only going to show you footage of the darkest, dampest areas in the game and not the others. Hell, I won't even show you some of the pretty spots in these areas because they don't help my point. Not going to be a super long point, however the music here is just generic choir music, nothing special about it at all. Also, it gets louder at random parts. No joke, it randomly gets louder in the middle of the song. It's almost as if the devs didn't listen to the tracks or understand how music works. This is embarrassing, but not surprising given what game this is. There's a lot of them, but are they worth talking about? Not really. The DLC bosses that came out a good bit after the game tended to be better, so why even bother bringing up the bosses here? In the other games, they went from mediocre to really good to really bad. That's just not the case here. There's literally not one example in the base game that makes me have any emotional reaction. To bring up some examples, let's talk about Wolnir and Yorn. Pretty much every boss in the game is like these two. Big, slow, lumbering idiots you can easily smack up in a matter of moments. You can see on screen how boring it is. Truth be told, by the time we reached Vort, I was already on life support from how sleepy I was. The point I was waiting to bring up, however, is how clunky and goopy this game's bosses are. So many times while playing, I can just walk to the side of their attacks and they completely whiff. How could you call this engaging when this idiot can't even hit me while I'm walking? This goober is the final boss of the game and technically the series. Was this ever a good batch of games? This goes for the enemies too. I had a mimic look like he got lost in Wonderland just because I kept walking circles around him. This Michael Zaki guy clearly should never be the head of any creative endeavor. Also, the boss health. One of my biggest complaints about Dark Souls 3 is the ginormous health bars. I mean, look at how many hits it actually takes to kill these guys. Are we serious? Did the devs think I have 5 hours to wail on this dude? I was originally gonna end this section right here, but I noticed I can't because I forgot one thing. There's this Twitch streamer bait move in this video game and I really can't forgive it. Solar Center has this one move in his second phase. It's the first move he does normally, where he'll do this chaining combo that will either immediately kill you or do a big chunk of your health bar. And the moment I saw it, I knew that this was just meant to be a shock and awe moment. It's like, I almost feel like I'm going against FromSoft and I'm not even really going against the boss because they stick in bullshit reaction bait moves like this. It's not fair. Now some may say Manus has done this before, and anyway, I just think it's not really cool that this game in particular does this. It takes away from the value of it, I find. So I suppose we can actually end that section off, or this section off, with that. Let's talk about the DLCs, I guess. This is my first time playing them. If I wasn't making this review, I'd most likely never have played any of them, as by the time I open this game, I'm ready to close it. Starting with the Ashes of Ariandel. There's only one boss here, and it's a woman. The woman is fine, and there's no other bosses here because they weren't right in front of me, so I won't bring them up. Then we get to the Ring Cities DLC. It's fine. Despite it being called the Ring City, you don't even spend the first half in it. I don't mind traversing it as much as the woman's area. However, it's not that much better. It's got the same problems the base game has with no real interconnectivity, or at least not like my god Dark Souls 1 does it. But we get Gale as the final boss here, and he's okay. Probably my favorite old man fight, but I could understand if someone put Gwyn ahead of him. My issue is he never lets me heal. A boss in this game is trying to kill me, and that really sucks. The devs didn't cook with this one. But then we get to a masterpiece, a word I'd never share in the same breath as Dark Souls 3 unless we're talking about him. Here, from this elevator, you will see an opening in the wall. Once you roll through an invisible wall you'd have no reason to know exists, you then plummet into some murky water and see the Dark Dragon. It's storytelling like this that this game doesn't normally have, and don't look into that, so it's really cool to see here. Off of him we have the last boss, Half-Light, and Half-Light himself is awful. Let me tell you why. Before you fight him, you have to fight a ring knight with 2 great swords. It's literally impossible to get past him any other way, and it's flat out exhausting to fight this guy every single time. If they had just made one way possible and you didn't have to do this every single time, that'd be cool, but there isn't. It's like the dev said, do you enjoy Half-Light? No, of course not. It's shit Souls 3, so let's make the Runbacks stupid. Such a dumb boss idea, and I can't believe it got into the game in the first place. And onto the fight himself, he hits me. Are we real? It's stuff like this that lets you know Dark Souls 3 was a cruel experiment on the masses where the devs actually hate everybody, and if you do like it, you're a wiener licker. Overall, Dark Souls 3 is a game I wouldn't even recommend to my friends. The only way someone should play it is if they lost a bet and were murdered if they didn't follow it. But I do find it funny, all you little Dark Souls 3 leeches keep getting mad at me when I say your game is dog shit. Like, why do you care, bozo? They're always gripping for attention, as when I make my 5th video with big red text saying it sucks dog ass, or an 8-hour response video, they always respond. Those milk drinking pussies always have something to say, which I never even say anything worth counterpointing because I'm so much smarter than you. But if you want me to keep making these videos, then please keep commenting. I'm only going to select the straw man comments to shit on you more. Anyways, that's been my honest critique of Dark Souls 3. If you agree with me, leave it in the comments. If you disagree with me, shut the hell up. Anyways, I'll see you guys in my next video. I'll show you the thumbnail right now. So with that, goodbye and good luck. Well. It appears that there was quite a reaction on my last video. The Dark Soy Boy community clearly doesn't understand criticism or critique, so I've been pulled into the fray again. If you idiots want me to keep talking about this truly awful game, then I suppose I can. It's very easy to do when it's the worst of the trilogy. Some people claimed in my Dark Souls 3 video that I said it was bad. All I said is I simply wouldn't play it. You guys always try to spin some narrative that I'm this big mean guy saying all these mean things, but all I'm saying are my thoughts. Leave it up to the Soy Souls community to twist and pervert my message to the point they think I was trying to be mostly negative with a thumbnail like this. They also keep saying I don't just keep my criticism on the game and that I'll throw some jabs at its fans. That's not true, you fucking idiots. Honestly, I shouldn't be surprised that the critical Michael Zaki White Knights would jump to the defense that I hurt their feelings by only talking about a game. It barely them. Some other little thing people brought up was, well, what about builds, NPCs, lore, PvP, and all that stuff? I just don't play the game that way, so I don't interact with any of those mechanics. If it's not mapped to R1, I'm not using it. So maybe it would be fun for someone who does engage with those little things. But for me, I'm gonna keep going on my full critique while ignoring massive chunks of the game. Thank you very much. Some may say I've gone on record saying I like the lore of these games, so it'd be weird for me not to bring it up here. But that only applies to things I want to like. If it's something I don't want to like, I'm not going to bother mentioning it, which this is one of those cases. Also, unfortunately, I incorrectly called Farron Keep Farron Woods, so when I mention it later, that's what I'll be calling it. Hope it doesn't draw any parallels to anything. Now with that out of the way, I get to move on to other points I wished I expanded upon a bit more in my original video, now that you bumbling idiots have mouthed off to me. One of the main things the comment yappers were talking about is how I was talking about the enemies, saying I should fight them instead of running past them. I took this very literal and I fought every single enemy in the game. And let me tell you, it let me reflect on how much more awful this system was than I thought. So many times I'd end up fighting so many enemies I'd sit there and wonder, am I supposed to fight all these guys or walk past everything? The reason I came to this conclusion was because when I was fighting the enemies, they'd fight back and actually manage to kill me sometimes. The fact that I died to these enemies doesn't mean I should get better or that some of these encounters themselves are meant to be hard. It means I'm going to skip it. And then the enemies have the nerve to follow me and try to attack me regardless, as if they don't see me trying to ignore a massive chunk of the game. That's just ridiculous. Some may say most games put enemies there for you to fight them. Anyways, let me ask you Dark Souls 3 fans a question. At what point do you stop glazing this game and accept this is just horrendous game design? Another example is some of these enemy setups. The way that some of these guys are positioned, it's quite clear they're only in the game because the devs intentionally want you to sell it. And in Orlando, there are these invisible knights that you have no way to react to. Right after the spinny tower and right before Aldrich, there's two knights that when I turn the camera away from them and don't look at them, they come out of nowhere. The same goes for the archers before the spinning tower. When I don't look at where the arrows are coming from, they literally come out of thin air. It's like they have invisible archers. The game is punishing me for opening it at this rate. This game doesn't reward you for paying attention. It's clear the devs wanted you to buy this game just to refund it after they had their giggles off of your suffering. Some people want me to talk about this point more, but that's really hard to do when I find them so boring, slow, and clunky. But one of the bigger issues I missed in my first video is the trial and error in these games drives me up the wall. In this game, you'll have to learn bosses through multiple runs, getting hit by things that do crazy damage just so you can master the deep mechanics of what the boss does. But unlike a good game like Dark Souls 1, the learning process is significantly less fun. I have to spend hours trying to learn and perfect these guys guys to unlock the fun mode. And sure, I had a little smile on my face, but it wasn't that I was happy that I beat this boss and overcame adversity. More so that it was finally over, this torturous, arduous experience. They put Bloodborne speed bosses in my Dark Souls game, which I'm not really a fan of. At this point, quickstep should be the normal dodge, because it's not fair that these guys can move like crazy, while I'm stuck with the basic FromSoft formula of dodge R1. This formula just doesn't work anymore, and I don't think I'll be buying any FromSoft games that come out after this one, to be honest. It's not me at this point for refusing to adapt, it's the game, as it itself is just doing too much. Another point I want to bring up is the bad moveset ideas of these bosses. Dark Souls 1 was a master class of good boss ideas, with things like Quailag and Gargoyles being prime examples. Both of these bosses made you focus on positioning and spacing, with Quailag's example being the little fire puddle she'd spit out, and with Gargoyles, because you had to focus on two different opponents. It's something that's sorely lacking in the other entries. I can hear you saying, well, what about Demon Princess, Freed Second Phase, or Iron Dragon Slayer? And to them I'd say, these are just environmental problems, or just them adding a second guy. I wouldn't call that amazing design, but I do want to bring up a fun boss design choice in this game, where when you're fighting Osiris in the second phase, he has a 0-frame tackle. That's just ridiculous, and this kind of stuff would just never happen in any of the other games. There's some agonizing mechanics in this game that I forgot to mention. The invaders being able to respawn, being able to get invaded without any way to cut it off, the music clipping in and out. I just don't understand how anyone would like this game. One of the worst mechanics, quote unquote, revolves around this ember system. Once you die, you lose about 20% of your health bar, and there isn't a single way to get that health back other than defeating a boss. What if I want that health back while I'm exploring? Or what if I die to a boss the first time and want that bonus health when I challenge them the second time? There's literally no items or anything I can use to re-enter the embered state, and it's driving me mad. There's so much to say against the mechanics here that I can't believe anyone would attempt to defend such an objectively flawed piece of work. Something else some fool might try to say here is I can look past the negatives and appreciate what's here. There's nothing here, you cult-like demons. There are no deep or good mechanics, unlike Dark Souls 1, the best one by far. Let alone, let's talk about another fun gimmick here. There are multiple bugs in the code. Like before, when you fight the hollows at the High Wall of Lothric, they can be seen praying or something similar. Are these not enemies? Why is their sole function not to just attack me? The same goes for if you repose the Pontiff dogs and they fall on their backs, refusing to get up. It's things like this that let you know this game is an awful, incomplete, buggy mess that should have never been released in this state or any other than those. Sometimes enemies will just bug out, beginning to twirl in place, or get stuck, or in the case of the dogs, they'll just warp to your location. Seeing as this is the only game in the entire trilogy with those issues, it sticks out like a big, rotten, sore thumb. Boss runbacks here are by far the worst in the trilogy, and damn near the worst thing they've ever made. Aldrich and his cronies have an awful runback. Then Ancient Wyvern's area in itself is a runback. Are FromSoft serious? I didn't even cherry pick a few bad examples while ignoring 90% of the game. It's all pretty much like this. It's a good thing that no other games in the trilogy had this issue, especially Demon Souls or Dark Souls 1. They were great and damn near flawless with this system. I don't understand why this game in particular decided to be Boss Runback Simulator. Sometimes when I'm thinking about fighting a boss here, I imagine the slog of walking around the gruel in this game, and I immediately cut it off. Now, I know I said I wouldn't talk about the NPCs, but this is more of a surface level thing. When talking to NPCs like Igon, he'll mention how you'll die over and over again. It feels like the writers here intentionally did this to spit a little venom at us, the player base, for playing it. And a Michael Zaki quote that's definitely real that I sourced by myself and didn't take from someone who didn't even show it on screen. Difficulty was never the point of these games, so I find it weird only in this game they'd make a character talk about you dying as if it's some sort of expected thing. Clearly he's lost his way, as they never tried to push any narrative like this before, especially in my favorite game, Dark Souls 1 Prepare to Die edition. But now let's go into a huge point I have against this game, the rewards. Now I play this game with a dex build exclusively, and unfortunately when playing this game, I noticed there's other weapon types, miracles, sorceries, and other items for the players to use. These are all completely useless to me, so 90% of the game has no value to me at all. So many times I feel like I beat a boss and wasted my time as they have nothing for me to use. Nameless King and Iron Dragon Slayer would be two good examples. Neither of them drop anything for me to use, so it somewhat feels like a waste of time even dealing with them. Some may say, well, isn't there some fun in fighting the bosses or just playing the game? Anyways, it's clear this game was made with only a few certain demographics in mind. People who like destroying the game with broken builds, people who like learning the game to the point I can tell they don't take a shower, and people I wouldn't like very much. Some genius in the comments might try to say something like, well, if you ever respec in the future, wouldn't those items be helpful then? No, because I never do that. This is the way I play the game, and it's never changing as long as I own it. Didn't mean to double dip on this point in my last video and now this one, but it feels like unlike every other Souls game ever made, this one has some bad areas. Fair and Keep is a prime example. Like I said in the last video, it's goopy ground you have to roll around in like a pig in slop. Some may say, well, what about Irithyll, Catacombs, Profane Capital? So anyways, in Fair and Keep, they have these grabber guys with the weirdest, wonkiest movement I've ever seen that will jump up in the air where you can't hit them, grab you, and then plop you into this goop again. This is objectively a horrendous enemy design, but I guess that tracks with this god-awful game. The sky around here is ugly, the enemies are ugly, the swamp water is ugly. That's just ridiculous. On to the other areas. Fair and Keep keeps see what I did there? Getting worse and worse. Right before a boss fight, there's a run-up with a bunch of these Gru guys and some Dark Wraiths. It's an awfully thought-out area, as am I supposed to fight all these guys or run past everything? Like I said earlier, it doesn't make any sense to stick the entirety of the game's enemies in this one section. On to the next area. Fair and Keep has a stray demon, which is just a carbon copy of the Asylum demon from Dark Souls 1. I'm astounded by Michael Zaki's laziness this time around. Now I finally feel comfortable ending this segment and this part of the conversation here, as I've talked about every single area that matters in between this video and the last one. Now let's go over some of these cultists' comments they left in my last video. Strawman1999 said, LMAO, this guy's dumb. This is the most intelligent FromSoft argument ever. When will you guys say anything more than mad 'cause bad? Literally no one else in the thousands of comments said anything smarter than this. Some other genius in the comments said, Dark Souls 3 is the Ninja Gaiden of the trilogy. Are we serious? These are the bravest 3 defenders. There's no intelligent arguments from these cultists, which is why I never bother responding to these scroats 99% of the time. They just suck. All of them. I saw some other ones like, why are you using a level 3 broadsword on a mid-game area? Why are you cutting context on the ganks you caused? And the weakest one. They're legitimate things to criticize this game for, but to throw random lies in makes me not want to listen to you. But those don't really matter, so I won't be responding to those. It's clear this community can't fathom what a critique is, so they implode the moment they actually hear one. A bunch of sensitive man babies, to be honest. This game isn't good. It'll never be good. And the only ones who'll disagree with me are those cultists who make up 90% of the FromSoft soy boy community. Do you think they named themselves FromSoft because they knew their community would be soft and unable to handle critique? Maybe that's the one thing Michael Zaki did right, because it's clear from playing this miserable thing that should have never existed, he's clearly not good at game design. Everyone thinks I come into these critiques with bad faith just because I made a thumbnail with big bold red letters saying it sucks, and the fact that I only like to focus on things I didn't like. How would you come to a conclusion like that unless you were a feeble-minded cultist? This is my subjective critique of an objectively flawed game. I'm not exaggerating or making up any game mechanics. I'm just the only one in the entire FromSoft fandom that can stand up against you weaklings. Anyways, that's been my whole critique. Like I said last time, Dark Souls 3's fandom seems to be itching for content, because they can't make their own. So if you want more, you little FromSoft goblins, I guess comment more. If you leave a good counterpoint, I'm gonna ignore it. But if you leave a weaker one, I might pick that out and shit on you for it. But that's been it for me. Later, FromSoy fans.
Hey guys, it's Post-OM. I appreciate you for watching this far, unless you skipped to this point, which cool, I guess. I just wanted to talk about some extra stuff around these, some of the comments that I got, give you some fun facts, everything related to this trilogy, well, I guess quadrilogy of videos. First of all, the Dark Souls 1 review, that's based off of Mauler. I wrote the script how he talks, and clearly I'm mimicking his voice. The Dark Souls 3 one is based off of Feeble and how he talks, and all of that fun stuff. The Dark Souls 2 video, it's more so based off of how I've just seen discourse around the game go in comment sections, when I've brought up I play the game IRL and forums, stuff like that. Just a fun little fact.
I guess I could go into what the perceived differences were between these sorts of styles and how I wrote the scripts for them. To start with Mauler, pretty much any time he made a point, he'd spend the next 2 sentences or so emphasizing how bad it was, either insulting the game itself or the devs every single chance he had. I very distinctly remember while writing it, I was struggling to think of insults to tack onto every point. A lot of the small jab-like additions don't add anything other than to purely spite the creatives behind it. Normal creators might add a little spice in between certain points. In his defense of DS2 vid, it was pretty much a constant, and I had to convey that. Also, some people in the comments stated how they agreed with some of the points I made. This was intentional. Certain points in this video are things even I agree with. I feel the same with certain points Mauler himself made. But even with those said points, it's conveyed in such a condescending, smarmy tone, it ignores anything else around said points to just focus on the more negative aspects. It's intentionally not conveyed as a nuanced conversation here. It is solely just, this thing is bad and there's no redeeming qualities. There's a few things that are also just pulled out of nowhere that aren't grounded in anything, but that's also in his video, so that's why it's there. He says a lot confidently wrong, but with the tone he speaks, I imagine if you're not paying attention, his points might slip by some. Feeble is a lot simpler. It's mainly based off of the tone he took in his second Dark Souls 2 video, but it also grabs a bit from his Shadow of the Erdtree video in tiny ways. No offense to him as a person, but he speaks in a sort of groany, stereotypical nerd kind of way. While Mauler speaks more authoritative, Feeble is pretty much the opposite. He also has a certain dry way of holding some of his words that makes when he's complaining about something nigh unbearable to listen to at times. As for the writing the script itself, I feel it was a lot easier. I consider Feeble's video constructed a fair bit worse than Mauler's. While I obviously don't love either or, Feeble on average said a lot more things that flat out don't make sense if you've played the game for any stint of time in my opinion. There's a lot of overlap between the two for sure, but I feel Feeble, even in the shorter time span, managed to pull more points out of thin air just because he looked at things very surface level. The invisible archer's point, when you can literally see them if you move the camera, immediately comes to mind. Or when he mentioned how Dark Souls 2 specifically focused on death, while the name of the special edition of Dark Souls 1 is Prepare to Die edition. To this day, it genuinely fries me he even made that point because of how dumb it is in context with the rest of the trilogy, and how easy it is to shoot it down. The other thing is, while Mauler may have been against Dark Souls 2 fans with some of his points, Feeble took shots at the entire fandom multiple times across his videos when they got called out. The whole religious idiots point that I made a few times is because that's a stance he believes in and has said multiple times. He also admitted his past self, which would have been the self these videos were wrote off of, was toxic because he couldn't exist in a world with people who disagreed with him. And even after coming to that realization that his past videos were written in a toxic headspace, he still has negative feelings towards the From community. He was, in my opinion, a bad faith actor, and given that, he gave me many points I could slightly alter to fit Dark Souls 3, and you can feel the condescending, mean, misleading sort of intention behind them. And also the thumbnail style of big red aggressive letters came from his FromSoft videos, and I believe his critiques as a whole. It's a way to annoy someone before they even click on whatever your critique is, and it's something I imagine most who'd want to be taken seriously in said critique videos just wouldn't really do. It's more of a clickbait tactic, if anything. The DS2 video was pretty free, honestly, as it was based off of comments, and comments are usually the lowest held rung of the conversation in the grand scheme of things. No offense to anyone commenting on any videos across YouTube, but content creators like me, Mauler, and Feeble would be more likely to be held long-term accountable for bad takes we'd have than the random comment Andy who says Souls games shouldn't have an attack button or something. You can see this by looking at the reputation Feeble has in the From fandom. A lot of people really don't like him, but if he was just in the comments of someone's video or said his takes offhand, someone random IRL, I doubt the people who hate him now would even know who he is. That being said, it gives way for some people to say some very stupid takes in comment sections. I did blend some of Mauler and Feeble's points here and there, but that's just because some people regurgitate similar sounding points to theirs and then lay them on thick. Might even throw in a slur if you're unlucky. They'll insult the devs, they'll insult the creators, they'll insult anyone who likes it. And sometimes, they won't even have seen or played the thing they're talking about. They don't tend to carry the tact most creators need to gain a following. They aren't held to the same standards. So I can pretty much write from the few toxic examples I have in my comment sections. I've had some people type out laughing at people they disagreed with. I've had someone write asterisk, sigh, asterisk. Even the dragging thing I do in the video where I'll hold the word in a comfortable amount of time, I've seen that typed out in the comments. So when it came to the writing process, whatever slanderous thing that came to mind just kind of ended up in the script. The Ava segment in particular was one of my favorites in this because while I was halfway through editing the video, I hopped on Dark Souls 2 just to get a bit more footage for this while I was in a party with some friends. And halfway through, someone joined in and randomly checked what game I was playing while I'd never mentioned it. Then they told me how Dark Souls 2 sucked, how Aleum Lois was bad. Then they asked me, isn't that the area where you need to find some random eyeball in a big area to see the boss? Nah, I'm good. They then went on to complain about Frigid Outskirts, an area they literally could not have reached yet if they did not play the DLC, which is what they conveyed to me. That's the only reason that segment even made it into the script, and why the whole, nah, I'm good, is said a few times in the vid too.
I also want to talk about how some people think I'm a happy little gumdrop that loves Dark Souls 2. I have no complaints with Dark Souls 2. I can't understand why anyone would dislike it, and I love everyone who's ever defended Dark Souls 2 ever. This shows an ignorance to my character. I understand that there are people who are seeing these videos and that's their first impression of me, but if you watch any of my real Dark Souls 2 videos, even the ones where I'm talking with no script, this is not true at all. If you watch my real review of Dark Souls 2 where I say I love Dark Souls 2, here's why, there's an entire segment where I talk about stuff people dislike, and there's a lot of things I go, I understand why you dislike this, but it doesn't ruin the game for me. It's this little thing called nuance. I hate to say it. Some people have this thing called opinions and can understand where other people are coming from, but not fully agree with them. Ooh. And then in one of the casual talking videos I was doing, I happened to talk about some of the other Dark Souls 2 creators, some people who defend the series, and how I disagree with some of the stuff they said because I think they went a little too far. A lot of people see this in this video series as me just tearing apart the Dark Souls 2 haters. No, this is me getting at these videos where everyone has like this smarmy, I'm the right guy and you're the stupid little wrong guy. That's what this is a parody of. This isn't a parody of the deeper Dark Souls 2 conversation where I think that it's a flawless game and everyone who doesn't love it completely are dipshits. It is me talking about the people who I think are dickheads that talk pretentiously about literally every point, right? Just wanted to get that out of the way because I've made it very obvious, like I just said, I don't love everything about DS2. There's certain things I'm not super huge fans of. There's certain sections, there's certain enemies, there's certain things I don't like. I've said this before in another video. If someone made a Dark Souls 2 conversation or critique video and they weren't talking crazy, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Like even, I remember seeing Zero Lenny's after I started playing Dark Souls 2. I have no memory of what that guy said. I wasn't like, wow, this is a malicious actor who is aiming to shit on my favorite little video game and now I must tear him to shreds. But it is what it is, I guess. And I guess I have to talk about why I chose to specifically reference Mauler and Feeble's videos. Some people think I've been holding this long-term grudge and I waited till this very moment to talk about their videos. Not true. When their videos came out, I do not even believe I owned Dark Souls 2. I probably still only had Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne when their videos came out. Dark Souls 2, I believe, was the last Souls game that I played in the trilogy. So that idea is kind of out the window. I just happened to become a Dark Souls 2 fan, and a lot of discourse around Dark Souls 2 references these videos, so I then went on to watch them. You saw my first real reaction to Feeble King's Dark Souls 2 videos. I recorded them, and it was last year that I really saw them and understood what they were talking about. The main reason that I chose Feeble and Mauler's videos, some people, again, think it's because I'm the Dark Souls 2 fanboy and I love the game, and these people having hard stances against it makes me want to tear them apart. Not true. I think from a creator standpoint, their critiques are literally awful. I'm not saying they didn't put work into them. I'm not saying they didn't even try and that they vomited it out with editing and all that. But writing wise, these are some of the worst critiques I've seen. I don't mind critiques. You guys haven't seen the video yet, but I reacted to G-Man's Trepang review. I love Trepang completely. I can't think of a lot of things I have problems with in Trepang, right? And in G-Man's video, he says he doesn't like the music. He said it was like generic scratch or something like that. He said the story isn't really anything to keep note of. And these are big points that I love about the game. But you're never going to see me make a video mimicking him and going like, because that's a legit opinion, right? He's not lying or making up anything. I can disagree with him, but that's where that ends, right? But then you get to Feeble and Mauler's videos, and they are intentionally disingenuous. That's really my issue with it. From a creator standpoint, even if those videos weren't about Dark Souls 2, they could have been about anything else. They could have been about Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 1, Sekiro, Bloodborne. Does not really matter. The way that they wrote those videos and plotted them out is disingenuous lying. And it's crazy to me that they released them like that. There are multiple points where they say things that are just not true at all. Hey, you notice when you're fighting Smelter Demon, his music completely cuts out? This is not a thing. Hey, you notice there's respawning invaders? This is not a thing until New Game 5. Or they just omit things. Like, my favorite clips are the ones where they show how, like, absolutely ganked they are, and they don't show the context. It's become a running joke for me when I'm talking about people who hate on Dark Souls 2 and they bring up these clips, because they're not true. They're so obviously misconstrued that if you've played the game, it's immediately obvious. Like, people will show the force of the giants and how many enemies are there, but they ignore the fact that half of those enemies are sleeping. It's like you have to go and wake them up for them to all attack you, and then you have to not kill any of them, and then you have to ignore the fact they all have like 2 hits of health.
And you can't even give them it's the mandatory path excuse, because it isn't. You don't have to wake up half of them if you just go towards the fog wall. You can literally see.
There's so much you have to ignore to make that point in particular, and they both make it. They both cut the context of what led to it happening. Feeble multiple times cuts around all these ganks. He has one in Lost Bastille. I don't even know how he got half of the enemies into the positions they were. These people in those videos were intentionally disingenuous. I understand I'm not going through every single point, and it's just because I don't remember all of their points off of the dome, but a majority of what they're saying is either lies, are completely misconstrued, or put in a void. There's a whole bunch of stuff like Mauler going, the AI in Dark Souls 2 specifically is horrible, when all of the early Souls games have kind of dog shit AI and you can get them stuck on stuff. If you watch the Dark Souls 1 thing at the start of this very video, you can see me fucking with the AI and getting them stuck on everything. Is this acknowledged? No. Oh man, I mean, Dark Souls 2 bosses are they're just not great. I mean, most of them max out at okay. In Dark Souls 1, most of the best renowned bosses, right, the ones that most of the fandom like, are in the DLC. You don't see a ton of people glazing a ton of the base game roster like that, because early FromSoft, in my humble opinion, was not very good at making bosses until like Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne and Elden. Like, who's repping Leechmonger, right? Who's repping Dirty Colossus? Who's repping Taurus as their favorite boss ever? Like, these things don't happen, but if you try to put them in a void and people don't really think about what you're saying, I guess it sounds smart. And Feeble in particular, I think, is a very interesting person, because all of his FromSoft videos, he admitted in his Night Rain video that his past self was toxic, and it really shows. If you saw my first reaction to his second video, he was talking like a dickhead. Let me ask you Scholar fans this. And the other one, if you want another video, keep complaining, I guess. It's very obvious that Dark Souls 2 fans are just itching for content after the Great War ended. He comes off like a pretentious prick, and he acknowledges that, but then he's still annoyed that From fans are annoyed at him when he said in his own Night Rain video that he could not accept a world where people disagreed with him. So these videos that I chose to reference here, the Dark Souls 2 videos, Mauler and Feeble, they were made with bad intentions, and I don't even really know why. Maybe it was to take down the king or whatever, because I guess back then it wasn't as common to shit on Dark Souls 2, but they just made up shit. They just lied. They misconstrued and voided tons of points just to make the game sound bad for no reason. If they critique anything, I would still think those videos were kinda shit, to be honest.
And I can accept maybe a point here and there they just literally did not know, but when you deliver it in such a pretentious way, and you've literally just lied and misconstrued things like I mentioned, it's hard for me to even care if there's some certain things you didn't know. And it's even harder for me to tell if it's something you didn't know or if you just wanted to lie about it. Especially if in like Feeble's case, you double down on the video multiple times. It's like, what do you want me to say? If I come to you for a critique, I expect you to not literally just lie to me because you don't like the thing. I think most people would expect that.
It's not personal. Like, I don't really care about Mauler. I don't watch his stuff. I don't go out of my way to watch things that make me mad. There's a very specific reason you've never seen me react to Feeble King's I beat Dark Souls 2 at soul level 1, because I know it would piss me off. It's just, it's grim. So people go, do you really hate Feeble? Do you really hate Mauler? I don't randomly think in my day, man, I fucking hate Feeble King and Mauler. I just think their videos were so badly constructed that it deserves criticism. And given these are public videos that they've left up, and I know Feeble hasn't retracted any of his statements or updated a Dark Souls 2 video to go like, yeah man, maybe I was wrong about this, this, and this. Since that hasn't happened, why can I not comment on a public video of someone's opinions that they haven't even retracted? I think it's weird that people, like some have told me, why are you getting into this? It was all this time ago. It's still a fucking public video, dickhead. Like, what do you mean? But yeah, I had to get all that out of the plate. A little bit of extra content for you at the end of this super long ass video. I'm very curious what people think about this bit and any of the other videos in this video. But with that, I've been M, and I am out.